Well, friends, I will be honest with you all today. I'm a bit distracted. This is one of the challenges of living on the West Coast. Some of you may know about this after moving from the eastern portion of our country. Just a few minutes ago, my Cleveland Browns football team just started their first game of the regular season. I know. Against the hated rival Pittsburgh Steelers. Please don't tell me the score by shouting it out in the middle of the church service. Now, some of you may know what I'm talking about and possibly feeling as a sports fan. For the rest of you, let me explain. Growing up in middle America of Cleveland, Ohio, some would go as far as to say that football is religion itself. Life in the Bindard household meant that on Sunday mornings we would go to church, and by 1 p.m. we were on our butts, ready for our second round of church, this time the church of the NFL and the Cleveland Browns. I can still feel the excitement and energy of the first kickoff of the season. The noise of the crowd rising like that of a swelling ocean wave and exploding with the kick of the ball. A new season has begun. Now this year is particularly exciting for a bit of a unique reason. Last year my team did something I never thought was possible growing up. We had a perfect season. Well, perfectly imperfect. As we managed to lose each and every game of the entire season, 0-16. Now you may be wondering why a grown, educated, rational man like myself would be so excited to cheer for a team that did not win a single game last season. The reason is pretty simple. It's football. It's a new season. And with the first game, that means that we are undefeated this year again, so far. This is the day that every single fan of their respective team shares in the hopes and dreams of victory, joy, success. People go nuts for their football teams. Now, do I think that the Browns will win every game this season? To be honest, no. But there is a chance. There is that childlike hope somewhere deep inside me that can even envision a season where we make it to the playoffs maybe. And maybe even the Super Bowl. One day. As Al Michaels shared with the world covering the men's national hockey team defeating the Soviets in 1980, do you believe in miracles? Yes! Why don't people go crazy for church the same way we do for football? Will Christians be excited to sit in parking lot traffic? Tailgate outside the church for hours? Pay hundreds of dollars just to have a seat and worship? Will we paint our faces and our bodies just to praise Jesus? Would churchgoers dedicate entire parts of their day to gather with friends and family and to share their experience with neighbors, coworkers, and strangers alike by decorating their cars, putting flags on their lawns, or sharing pictures and tweets of their experience with the world? It makes me wonder why some people are excited to dedicate hours and days to games like football, and in contrast, feel obligated at times to follow Jesus. Many people showing up to church as if there's nothing else more important going on, and praying if something really bad happens. I want us to think about this conflict a little as we read our stories today about Jesus performing miracles. Again, we are reading about Jesus in the Gospel of Mark. The word gospel meaning it's a particular genre of story just about Jesus, and that Mark is the author here. Again, the Gospel of Mark is not a huge book, but within these chapters, the author really packs in all sorts of action. The beginning of chapter 7, for example, opens with Jesus arguing with the religious authorities about issues of purity and the importance of one's heart as it relates to such purity, and not the traditional understanding concerning rules of cleanliness or boundaries as it relates to different foods and different types of people. Keep this in mind as we get back to our scripture reading for today. We pick up again in Mark chapter 7, verse 24. From there he set out and went away from the region of Tyre. So we read that Jesus got out of town. Maybe he needed a rest. Maybe he needed to lay low after causing a ruckus with the authorities. Whatever it was, Jesus leaves for a quieter town, away from the hubbub and the crowds. Verse 24 again, he entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there, yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Oh well, at least he tried, right? Verse 26, now the woman was a Gentile, of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. And here we have an outcast, according to Jewish understanding. A Gentile, strike one. A woman, strike two. With a demon-possessed daughter, strike three. There was no reason that Jesus, a devout Jewish teacher and healer at this time, would have anything to do with this person, especially when he's obviously exhausted and didn't want to be around people. Verse 27, he said to her, let the children, meaning the Jewish people, be fed first. For it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Ouch. Jesus, obviously exhausted, was not speaking with a filter at this moment. He just called this woman and her child dogs, less than human. But to her credit, the woman did not let this dissuade her. She responds in verse 28, sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he said to her, for saying that you may go, the demon has left your daughter. So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. And there you have it, miracle done. Wait a minute. What just happened here? Jesus wasn't supposed to be healing those dogs because they were considered unclean. And the next thing we know, that he cured the woman's daughter. And why? Because God moves beyond our preconceived notions of who is in and who is out of God's reach. Well, let's continue reading and see what else we can find out about Jesus. We pick up again in verse 31. He returned from the region of Tyre and went by way of Sidon toward the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. Okay, so Jesus is back at it, somewhat renewed now, near the Sea of Galilee where he was before his trip to Tyre. He is ready to get back at this ministry and healing thing. And then verse 32, the crowds bring him a deaf man who had an impediment of speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. Jesus took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put fingers in his ears, and he spat and touched the man's tongue. Then looking up to heaven, Jesus sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously the crowd proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, he has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. Another person who is determined by society to be beyond healing or saving, a person who would have been thought of as perhaps sinful and therefore punished by God with losing his speech and hearing, now healed and made well by Jesus. And Jesus' reaction? Shh. Don't tell anyone. But the crowds couldn't help themselves. They told everyone. Jesus went viral before social media was a thing. This was social media via people actually talking with one another. And so here we have it, 2 miracles performed by Jesus. In one case, he healed a Gentile's daughter from an evil spirit. In the other, he healed a man who was previously deaf and mute. And the people, they went nuts. So what do we take away from this today? Well, friends, the good news this morning, God does perform miracles even today, and we should be going nuts about it. In our stories today, we see a very human Jesus who has good days and bad, who wins and losses, who gets worn out and cranky like all of us. We also witness a God who shares with the world in and through Christ that human boundaries and limits have no power when it comes to miracles. We witness a Gentile woman and her daughter made well. We witness a previously thought of sinful man healed. And the people went nuts. What would it take for us as Christians today to get as excited to share what miracles God does in our lives today? Perhaps we don't get as excited as the crowds did back then because we don't see as many miracles today. And perhaps we don't see as many miracles today because in a world and culture that so highly values control and understanding, we don't give God the room to make such miracles in our daily lives. But miracles do happen each and every day. Do you see them? We may not see demons being exorcised from young girls today, but we do witness God moving as we see healthy new identities and outlooks on life through the efforts of professional counseling, empowering education, or the prayers of youth leaders and Sunday school teachers as they are surrounded by loving friends and youth groups. We may not see old men being miraculously healed of physical ailments, but we do see medical procedures that literally bring sound and speech to a person for the first time. The caring of family who love that person until it hurts. And the support of a church community who prays for that person, drives that person around town, and offers that person a safe place to simply be themselves in community. Friends, miracles are occurring right here and now. When we lift up our songs and prayers to God as a community of faith, we open ourselves to God moving within each and every one of us to perform everyday miracles through the actions we take, the words we speak, and the lives we live. And the common element within all of these miracles, both biblical and present day, it's love. It's love that the mother shared for her daughter. It's love that moved within the people to bring the man to Jesus to be healed. It's the love of Christ who showed compassion for those suffering. And the love is the centerpiece of miracles for today as well. So friends, let me give you our locker room talk as we begin our kickoff season here this Sunday morning. Do we believe in miracles? Yes! May we open ourselves to Christ to enter our vision, enter our minds, and to enter our hearts so that we can identify such miracles today. Today we are being called to go nuts for Jesus and to celebrate these daily miracles with the world. As we celebrate this kickoff Sunday, I'm not asking for you to paint your chest or to tailgate outside the parking lot before the service. Although that may be fun one Sunday. We'll think about that later on. But let's get a little nuts for God moving in our lives. When we witness human-made boundaries being broken in the name of liberation and human dignity, let's celebrate. When we hear stories of personal transformation, let's share it with our friends. When we see everyday miracles in our lives, let's go nuts about God at work in this world. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! And all God's people said, Hallelujah. Amen.